Hey team, welcome to day 2 of our training. So yesterday we just talked about why you became a coach, what made you initially sign up. But today we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about your why and we're going to talk about your story. Everybody has a story and everybody has a why. So for your why, it should be deep. It should be meaningful. Your why should be what keeps you going when you want to give up. It should be something that you're like, crap, this is why I signed up and this is why I need to keep going and this is why I need to push harder. And your story, we all have a story, and you have to figure out what your story is because that's how you're going to connect with people. That's how you're going to build relationships. That's how you're going to build relationships outside of your friends and family. And your why, it will change over time. When I signed up to become a coach, my why was completely different than it was now. And it should change over time because that means you're hitting goals. You're moving forward in your business. And when that happens, you're going to make your why come true. And then you're going to make a new why. So for example, in March, my why was to do this full time so I could be home with my husband on the nights and the weekends. And so I didn't have to leave Christmas Day to be back at my retail management position the next day. That was my why. And then I made that happen in September when I quit my job and I became a Beachbody coach full time. So now my why is for financial freedom. So my husband can eventually one day retire from his job and be at home for me, and we don't have to worry about having dual incomes. So that's my why now. So you'll see it changes over time, and that's a good thing. And then your story. We all have a story. And you may have to write it down and figure out what sentences you want to take from your story and what you want to share. And it may be scary at first, but by sharing your story, you're letting people know about you. You're letting people connect with you on a completely different way than just saying, hey, I'm a Beachbody coach. Hey, I love fitness. Hey, I got awesome results. By sharing your story, you're going to be able to connect with people and build new relationships. So my story, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. I came from a broken home. It's true. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old. I went back and forth from Florida to Illinois on an airplane every single summer because I had to go to my dad's for the summer. I had to come back home for school. My mom was really sick. She had Crohn's disease, so she was in and out of hospitals. I swear I grew up on hospital food, and that's probably why I'm such a picky eater because hospital food is so bland. I was very close to my grandmother. She helped raise me. We had a very close relationship. Every weekend I was at her house. Even in high school, I skipped the Friday night football games so I could go hang out at her house. I moved to my dad's when I was young, or when I was a sophomore in high school. I just wanted to kind of run away. I wanted to escape. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So for me, I came from a broken home. My parents divorced when I was not even 1 year old, and I always was going back and forth from Illinois to Florida, taking plane rides. I didn't know anything different growing up. When I was in the 6th grade, my stepmom passed away from brain cancer, and I fell into a depression. And for someone who's in the 6th grade, it's really hard to explain like what depression is to adults, like how you're feeling. But I did. I just fell into a deep depression. By 8th grade, I was cutting myself and I was miserable. I wasn't sleeping at night. I didn't have very many friends. I was very antisocial. It's the only way I knew how to cope with what was going on in my life. I went to 4 different high schools. Yeah, 4. I like to run away from my problems. It's just how it was growing up. I like to run away. It's what I did. So I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So for me, I grew up in a broken home. My parents divorced when I was 1 year old. I flew back and forth. I went from Illinois to Florida. I was the kid that was on the airplane by themselves at the age of 6, like with the stewardess holding my hand. That's all I knew. That's how I grew up though. And I went through a lot at a young age. When I was in the 6th grade, my stepmom passed away from brain cancer. I fell into a deep depression and it just kept getting worse and worse. By 8th grade, I was cutting myself. And I tried to hide it the best I could. By the start of my freshman year, I was at a brand new school, didn't know anybody, and things just weren't going well. And in the 9th grade was when I first tried to commit suicide. I cut myself over 50 times, and I don't know if it was a cry for help. I don't know what it was, but I had to go to hospital for a week. Do you know what it's like in high school to be locked up? At least that's what I thought it was as a kid. And then come back and have all these people asking all these questions. It's high school. We know how it was. There's rumors. Everybody was talking. And pretty soon my circle of friends was gone. I quit dating the guy that I thought I was like madly in love with. And life was just awful in high school. So by the 10th grade, I switched to a new school. And you'll notice a pattern. I like to run away from my problems. So I went to a new high school thinking everything would be so much better. And it was for a short while. But I was still severely depressed and I was still cutting myself without my friends and family knowing. I kept it a very big secret. In the 10th grade, I lost my childhood best friend. He got hit by a car. And that summer, I went to my dad's like I always do, and I decided to live there because, yet again, running away from my problems. That summer, I lost my grandmother, who was my best friend. She passed away from brain cancer after only having it for 28 days, and it hit me hard, like really hard. And I just stayed in Illinois. I was like, hey, my problems won't face me here. I can hide. No, still had major depression. I was still cutting myself daily. I had issues with my dad and my stepmom while I was living there, and I got kicked out of their house. And I was told, hey, you got to go back to Florida. So I went back to Florida to attend my fourth high school. And that's where I finished out my senior year. It wasn't easy. My grandmother is the one that took really good care of us. My mom had Crohn's disease, and it took a big toll on my family. She couldn't work. So she was home all the time. There wasn't a lot of income coming in. I kid you not. We ate McDonald's for almost every single dinner, every single night. I can't ever remember a home cooked meal like after my grandmother passed away. That's all I knew was the dollar menu at McDonald's. I got out there as quickly as I could. I left literally like 3 weeks after I graduated high school to go to college. And I went to college following a guy that I was in love with. Big mistake. But you live and you learn. So I left for school. And it wasn't easy. Again, you run from your problems, they just follow you. I was still extremely depressed. I flunked almost every course my freshman year. By my spring semester, I had had about enough. I thought it was better if I wasn't around anymore, so I tried to kill myself for the second time. I took over probably close to anywhere from 75 to 100 Tylenol PMs. And as soon as I did it, I realized I made a huge mistake. I called a friend of mine and I ended up being put back into a hospital. I was there for 2 weeks and I literally lost everything while I was there. I got kicked out of school. I got kicked off campus. I was told I could not come back home because if I did it once, I'm going to do it again. So luckily I had an amazing group of friends and they let me crash on their couch and they let me stay with them until I got back on my feet. And that's when I started moving around. So I went from Jacksonville to Arkansas. Didn't like Arkansas. I got in a really bad car accident, so I decided to move. Then I went to Tennessee. And when I went to go home to visit my family, my car broke down. I lost my job. I couldn't pay my rent. So I thought, hey, I'll become a live-in nanny. It sounds like a great situation. No, not so much. So I moved to Michigan, and that lasted about 3 months. And then I moved to Indiana, which ended up really being the best thing that ever happened to me. When I moved to Indiana, I started school again. I went back to finish my degree. That's how I met my husband. We met through mutual friends, found out we lived a block apart, and I started really working on myself. And then I was doing really good with fitness. I started dating my husband, my boyfriend at the time, and I had lost weight. But then when you get in a relationship, you get really comfortable with people and you just kind of like forget all that fitnessy stuff that you were doing. And I put on the weight, and then I put some more on and some more on and some more on. And before I realized it, I was close to 200 pounds. I worked at a restaurant, and so I was drinking soda every single day. I was eating really crappy food, and it just, every time I would try a new diet, it would just fail miserably. Like I would just give up. So New Year's of 2011, so New Year's Eve 2011, I got on the scale and I was 4 pounds away from 200 pounds. I said, enough is enough. I have got to stop. Luckily, my husband had introduced me to TurboFire, and he bought it for me. And he said, if you complete this, you don't have to pay me back. I didn't complete it. I didn't pay him back. But I had that program sitting there ready for me to go starting that January of 2012. January 4th, I started my fitness journey. I completed the entire round of TurboFire. I lost 38 pounds and over 35 inches, and I felt good about myself. I went from wearing a size 18 to wearing a size 10. Like, it was great. So in January of 2013, that is when I decided to become a coach. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. At the time, I didn't really know what the heck I was doing, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to go with it. And it's really turned out to be a good thing. So that's just a little bit about my story. That's not going super into depth. There is a lot more underneath the surface, but you can see we each have a story. For me, I can connect with people who have suffered with depression. I was there for 10 plus years. For those that aren't happy with their life and have committed suicide, I tried it twice. I was an avid cutter for 8 years. I also suffer from endometriosis and PCOS, so I can connect with people on that level that have that hard time losing the weight because I know what it's like with those conditions. So we each have a story, and I want you guys to put it down on pen and paper. I want you guys to make a video and share it with us. And then I want you just kind of like reform your story, kind of like how Tara talked about in the training. You just want to make it into 5 simple sentences, and you want to find that one awesome sentence that you can pull out and that you can post from time to time. But I hope from anything that you learn from today's training is that we all have a story, and your story is what is going to help you connect with other people. It's going to be your niche, and you're going to find your niche within your story. And it's how you're going to build relationships and how you are going to find new people to reach out to. So today, share your story with us. Don't be afraid. It's just going to stay within the group. And then share your why. I'm going to give you guys until Thursday to share your story because it may have to dig a little bit deeper. So by Thursday, I want you to post your story either via video or just write it out. But for today, share your why. What is your underlying reason? What's going to keep you going when you're ready to give up? I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks.